Everybody feared my mother.
Why?
For obvious reasons. I wish she was here. You'd be scared of her.
You remember how many times you went to Juvenile
Hall?
Hall? Yeah.
I think twice. I remember going from Juvenile Hall on a bus to that courthouse on a chain gang. Not a southern chain gang, but I was on a chain with 10 or 12 other people with ankle cuffs on and handcuffs, being led to my court room and then taken off the chain, but walking in still with ankle cuffs and handcuffs and saying hello to Your Honor.
You remember what you were thinking back then?
Yeah, that I had manipulated the judge in such a way that he really thought that this was an anomaly, that I was in the position that I was in the first time I saw him, and that he was going to be fairly lenient.
And what happened?
And I walked into my court date ankle cuffed and handcuffed. I was just in the yard of the courthouse in Santa Barbara, which is one of the most beautiful courthouses.
I can imagine.
Like literally, I mean, it's incredible. And I walked inside with my kids. It was open on a weekend. I don't know why it was open, but you can go in there just because the architecture is so amazing, and this is kind of Mexican architecture. And that's like what happened at Butterfly Beach. I had a full circle moment. That was the Cito Rats Beach. So, I remember cars with no doors. I remember the surf racks on top. I remember being with all my friends. I remember fights on that beach. I remember, surfing on that beach. Good memories now. And I'm on that beach with my 2 kids and my wife, and I'm like, I just had a moment where I was like, when did this happen? And it's not as extreme as I'm not supposed to be here and all that, and like program talk and all that, but it was like, this was never supposed to happen.
Why never supposed to happen?
Because you didn't think like that. It was an encapsulated bubble. It was a time where this group of guys banded together and leaned on each other, based on fairly neglectful parents that just kind of narcissistically did whatever they wanted to do.
And some were rich kids, some were poor kids.
It was a mixture.
Yeah.
It was an extreme mixture. And we all just kind of banded together, but it was also the beginning of punk rock. So we were all kind of shaving our heads and doing mohawks and doing that kind of stuff. And that was the beginning of Rich Kids on LSD. And a road I literally just drove, that house is gone. It's replaced with a new house. But I stopped and I showed my wife, I go, this is where I took LSD for the first time when I was 13. This is where this happened. This is where I learned to skateboard. This is where I started. I mean, this was it. Even when my dad says, I didn't know that was going on. How? We weren't hiding it. We were full-blown Cito Rat, in your face, Butterfly Beach. Nobody gives a shit, so neither do we.
That's what you felt like?
That's what I felt like.
Why?
Nobody gives a shit. Because there's a freedom in looking back when kids were just allowed to be kids and it wasn't so locked down like it is now. There's a fear that comes with that. There's a fear that you can't be out in life because it's too dangerous. There was something really wonderful about that then. But then there's also a fine line between, parents just saying can't deal.
And what do you think, looking back on that period now, what do you think it actually was on the part of your parents?
It's hard for me to blame because I go, look, my mom was a narcissist, period. You know what I mean? She was all about her own character. And I remember right before she died, there was a moment where that broke. And people started to take her seriously. And I remember her crying one day because she had always been perceived as this freak of nature. She was always this, character. Even every talk show that my dad ever went on ended up talking about my mom the whole time. I mean, my mother cultivated that relationship. My dad will tell you that. They were married in 12 days after they met. He was rebounding from a relationship he had that had just fallen apart. My mom was like, well? My dad was like, and she says, well, are we gonna do it or what? He's like, do what? She's like, are we gonna get married or what? He's like, I guess. And then 7 days later, they were walking down the aisle.
How do you think the divorce impacted you?
I don't, my mom always talked about divorce through the years, and it was like, I think by the time they did it, it was like, the mentality was, yeah, do the thing that you've been talking about forever, just do it, He was living in the bedroom next to mine downstairs, and she was upstairs. So it was like, it wasn't, but I do think that my mom, I think the way that it impacted me is that my mom thought, no matter what drama was going on, my mom was truly a loyalist in her version of it.
But correct me if I'm wrong, you wrote about this, but she'd been having an
dude.
affair
I knew you were going to bring that up.
A trucker
with a guy who looked
resembled
exactly like my dad.
for like 8 years.
Yeah.
Did he know about it?
No.
Okay.
But he did not know about it.
What, I don't.
Do you understand? It's like,
Well,
don't
like-
ask, don't tell.
Okay.
You know what I mean? It's like, some people have, it's like, yeah, that happens. If you're going to be a rock star, you're going to f a groupie. You know what I mean? And it's like, it's a go-to. And it's like, nah, you're home now. You know what I mean? I think there was a semblance of that in the air. Not that I knew that then, I didn't, but I think back on it now and I go, yeah, that was probably the case. Like, just don't ask and then you don't have to deal with it.
And he feared her.
Well, everybody feared my mother.
Why?
For obvious reasons. I wish she was here. You'd be scared of her. You know what I mean? She was super funny, super fun. But if you think I'm affrontive, forget it. My mom she'd say anything, do anything, didn't matter to her. She had zero filter.
Was there like domestic violence towards him?
No.
Okay, got it.
Toward him?
Yeah.
Verbally. Yeah, verbally. I remember, I don't think it's that funny, but I remember my dad watering the plants, poor guy, man, watering the plants, and she was just going, he wouldn't wake up until 11 o'clock for obvious reasons, just not wanting to deal. And my mom would just be going off, what lazy, just on and on and on. You're just like, f***ing hell, man. So.
And you still remember that?
Oh, dude, I hear it like it was yesterday.
And you were how old then?
All ages. There wasn't an age where it wasn't that. So, yeah, she was, what I was going to say was, I think that my mom always thought that it would stay the same. Regardless of whatever, spoken understanding or not. I think she always thought it would stay the same. And then it wasn't. And I think things changed after that. I think my mom changed after that. My parents battled. They lost everything. We all went to the lawyers. So they were both broke. I mean, absolutely broke. My dad was in an apartment, and my mom borrowed some money from somebody to build this piece of property that she was left in the divorce, and she built a very cheap house. And then when she died, I was given that bill because she had never paid a penny on it because she didn't have a penny. So yeah, they were bust.
She later on ends up getting in a fatal car accident on your birthday. And you said for like the couple of years after that, you were lost and spinning. And there's something that you said that stuck with us, which is that you said, it all comes down to a look she once gave when she saw me in jail. Explain that.
The look, it's not connected. Her death is not connected with when I walked out of Juvenile Hall for the first time and she was waiting for me in the lobby or the little room that they put her in that I was allowed to talk to her in. There was a look that she gave me, a smile that she gave me that told me that I was on the right road, not the wrong road, the right road. And it was a road of somebody who she had, I think, cultivated at that point, of cowboy fighting, drinking. It was like, yeah, this is my dude. And I think that I played into that for a very, very long time, even after her death. And I tried. There was a part of me that was always like, there's something else out there. There's not just the Cito Ras. There's not just being a drunk. There's not just being that. I always, I was the guy secretly listening to Journey on the side, reading poems in the bookstore. And so something interested me outside of that. And luckily, I had along the way people like Anthony Zerbe and all that who were like, hey, there is actually something. It's this. And you're like, wow, really? We're not just encapsulated in this mentality.
And were those kind of the most effective tools you found to get past the impact her death had on you?
The impact I think the impact of her death, which I still am wrapped up in. I write a lot about her, and this is something that I've tried to find my way through. It's like, if you're a character, if you're just an interesting personality, there's a positive that comes with that, and there's a negative that comes with that, in my world. And when I look at my mom is the extreme of that. Like, there's no person that I've met that's a bigger personality than my mom. So even the negative impact that she had, at least she had an impact. She was there, unapologetically herself. And that's interesting to me. And then there's people that want to have an impact and all that. So I look back on my life and all these travels through all the ups and downs of my profession and all the ups and downs of my personal life. And all the people that I've come across, and I've come across incredible people in my life. I've been very blessed in that way to meet some of the greats. But nobody compares to my mom. Nobody.